make a note on the 13B is actually a double tap there, so that's not gonna be there anymore because we discussed it up above, so. But other than that, I would take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Sean made the motion, seconded by Bruce. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, the next item up is Main Street, Highway 19, 13, and 19.
We need the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second. There you go.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the consent agenda, seconded by Sean. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I got excited
Yeah.
because of what you
We-
guys were talking about.
6:30, gotta get out
Ah, I
here
know.
at 6:30.
Okay, let's go to Highway 19 Main Street reconstruction.
Give me a minute, go-to meeting isn't working right here.
Sure.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, he's here.
Oh, okay.
You're off again, Matt.
Chris, you there?
It's like we're swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Oh, I'll take it, Mayor.
Okay.
In front of you is change order number 30 for the Main Street project. This change order involves the west end, right in front of, that would be the meat market. There's 6 to 8 panels that are cracked, and it was negotiated between the contractor and MnDOT to split the cost of that repair that will be taking place next Monday. So the cost split was $19,040.32 to MnDOT. The city has no cost in this, so looking for approval on change order number 30.
Okay, any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve change order number 30.
It's been a motion made by Maggie. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Columbus Avenue North.
Well, first I'll give you a little update on Main Street. On next Monday, the 12th, we're gonna be closing Main Street down, starting at 7th Avenue Northeast, and then all the way to 21. There's a bunch of warranty work that needs to be done, and it was decided.
This conference will now be recorded.
It was decided a couple months ago, the best way to handle it is to try to close it down before Dozinki weekend, so we don't have 2 separate closures. So we're gonna close it on Monday. They're gonna do all their work on Monday, Tuesday, and then there's like a 3 to 4 day cure time that you have to keep traffic off of it. So that's why it's gonna stay closed all of next week, all the way until Sunday morning when we normally would open it up Dozinki weekend. So that will be happening. It's we're gonna try to leave the crossings open at Columbus and First Avenue, and then any chance we get to open up any parts of Main Street besides the 2 ends will always be closed. We'll try to get as much traffic to the businesses that we possibly can. So that's the Main Street update.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Review again what part of Main Street is closed?
All the way from 7th Avenue Northeast, so kind of right by Sunrise Sunset, and then all the way to 21. So pretty much everything that was closed last year will be closed again,
And what date is that?
starting on the 12th.
Monday,
Next
next
Monday.
Monday.
And what kind of communication have you done?
New Prague Times, talked to Patrick this morning. The chamber knows about it. They're the ones that actually helped us out with the detour. We're using their detour that they use for the Dozinki Festival. So yeah, Brooke's been contacting business owners and everything. And then obviously the signs were put out last Thursday.
So will there be signs out ahead of time saying it's closed, going to be closed?
I didn't hear the
Will there
first.
be signs ahead of time saying it's gonna be closed?
Yeah, there's signs out on Main Street right now that
now?
say it's
Okay.
closed on the 12th.
Yeah, I believe the sign's over by Holiday, isn't it?
Mhm.
Basically
Well,
saying
they're,
it's
out- yeah, Holiday, there's ones on by Dairy Queen. They're scattered throughout.
All right, thank you.
For state detours, they're supposed to be at least 10 days advance notice.
And that's why they were put out last Thursday. Yep. There's no other questions. I'll give you an update on Columbus Avenue North.
Sure.
So 99% of the work on Columbus Avenue North has been completed. The only work that you'll really see that kind of sticks out is they're gonna do the striping hopefully tomorrow. And then a couple, signs they're gonna be installed this week by the Public Works. Today they've been doing televising, of the sewer and storm. So for the most part, the project is complete. It has been opened up since last week.
Looks good.
Yeah, it turned out really nice.
So, that next lift from Fourth to Main Street will be put on,
Yep, that'll get put on next, June.
June?
About.
Okay.
When you do that much utility work, underground utility work, we always only put one lift on and then we let it, just in case some settling happens, then we'll put the second lift on next year.
perfect.
And good job with that, by the way. I know I was worried it was gonna go slow, but you jumped on it when you needed to, so thank you for your,
Yep, not a problem.
Will there be crosswalk, painted not until next year then?
Nope, they'll be put up this year still.
Okay, and then also on, I know it's on 7th, or 10th rather, are you doing in other parts of the community too?
They pretty much did all of, the crosswalks throughout town this summer already. Is there
Okay.
one that we're missing?
Well, I think the one that crosses from the, 10th, by like a Main Street Dental
Yep,
I thought there wasn't one there, but unless,
there should be one there.
oh, there was done last week?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking, I wasn't there last week then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only other stripe that I didn't see was on 10th, turning left, the turn lane at the stop at the light. So turning left onto Highway 19.
Yeah,
Right
the
by
arrow,
the
the
bank.
arrows. The arrows.
Yeah,
All the arrows still need to be done on 7th Street and,
Okay.
10th Avenue still.
okay,
And that should be hopefully completed this week. We just got the paint last Friday.
great,
So, yep.
thank you.
All right, 2023 Street and Utility Improvement Project.
And this is Chris Knutson. Can you hear me okay now? I called in.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll go ahead and jump in here. Thanks for covering there, Matt. At the May 16th meeting, a feasibility report was ordered by council, and that had a project scope outlined at that time. Since that time, we've decided to make a change to the project limits to include the removal of First Street Southeast to 7th Street Southeast, and then to add in First Street Northeast from Lexington Avenue North to Sunset Avenue. Previously, that west block of First Street was not included in the 2023 project. And the reasoning for this change is that First Street Southeast is an MSA, a municipal state aid route. So if the project was used any amount of state aid funding, those requirements would apply to the entirety of the project. And so that could potentially add some additional time and cost to the project for only one block. Realizing that's probably the worst block as far as street conditions in the entire city. The intent is to complete those improvements instead in 2024. Because 2023, 24, and 25 projects have all been identified in this general area. So with the package today, you should have a resolution to make that change, just to make sure that the 429 process is followed all the way through. We do show both the removal of First Street Southeast and the addition of First Street Northeast in that resolution, but at this time, really, it's just the addition of First Street Northeast that has to be included if there's to be any discussion about leaving First Street Southeast in the project. but we are showing both the removal in addition to the streets that you mentioned. So, any questions regarding that for me?
I don't have any. Does anybody else? Okay. All right. So we'll act on that, ordering preparation of report on improvement project update. So, does somebody want to offer the resolution?
So
Make the motion to approve resolution 22090602.
Okay, is there a second?
second.
Okay, motion's been made by Maggie, seconded by Rick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, next item.
And just I can just make a general update, and then it's all within this update letter. Hopefully, this is helpful for everybody to have all these projects kind of put together. But just a general update on that project. We do intend to have a neighborhood meeting here next week, actually. So we'll start spreading some more information on that project, and hopefully have the feasibility report complete shortly thereafter. So just a general update on that project.
I got the mailing, Chris. It's kind of a nice little description. Do you send that out to the whole council? I mean, I got one because I'm part of the project. But, you know,
Sure.
it'd be nice
Yeah,
to send those
provide that.
mailings out to the whole council so everybody knows what's going on as far as like when the meetings are and stuff like that. So,
Yep, no, I'll make sure that we do that in the future.
okay, maybe we can get copies just emailed for now. Okay, the next item is 10th Avenue and First Street.
So I'll give you a little background on that, Mayor and Council. So we have, as we've mentioned, a couple of months ago, we had received a grant from MnDOT for, actually not a grant, but funding through the Highway Safety Improvement Program funds for $58,500, which is related to safety improvements to be made to 10th Avenue Southeast and First Street Southeast intersection, basically where we've got Hy-Vee and Praha Village. If you remember, we had some residents in last fall from Praha Village. We ended up doing some temporary striping and temporary signage to help with their concerns in a short-term fashion, knowing that we were applying for this funding. So we were awarded the funds. We do have $6,500, which is 10% as a local match that we have to put into this project. But what we will be getting out of it is rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which is shown on kind of the final page of the handout, and some very bright signage. So they will basically blink and provide much more indication to motorists that there are people trying to cross the road at that intersection. In relation to that, we do have to have a full engineering plan set put together, and we have that in your packet, which is a proposal by Chris Knutson and SEH to complete that work. Because this is federal funding, there are heavy requirements that must be met, and as such, there's quite a high proportion for the engineering fees, but we expected that with these funds. So we're not concerned about the amount of work that goes into it, but it's almost as much work that would go into a $5 million project, and we're talking $65,000 project. So unfortunately, that's just the name of the game with these funds, but we believe it's worthwhile to get this safety improvement done. And if awarded tonight to SEH to do the engineering work, we would expect that this would be bid out in the summer of 2023 and have that wrapped up in totality by the end of 2023. So staff does recommend the improvement or the agreement with SEH for the engineering related to the Highway Safety Improvement Project at 10th Avenue and First Street Southeast, and an hourly not to exceed amount of $18,300.
Okay, any questions?
just to have an understanding of the 58,500 is awarded, will we be spending all of that money?
Yeah, we will be spending all of that money, plus we will be spending, up to 65,000 was our estimate, what's that? Sorry, $65,000 was the, total amount that we expect the project to be. The grant award, or the funds award was for 90% of that at 58,500. We have a local match at, 6,500. So we do expect to spend that full amount.
Okay, is the sources and uses spelled out there somewhere? I'm just trying to, what's the total cost of the project again?
65,000.
65,000.
Yep, so
We're putting in 10,
No.
no, we're putting in 6,500,
10%.
which is a 10% match.
10%.
Yep,
okay.
that was required through the program.
And then the cost of the actual work?
Oh, the cost of the actual work, I don't know, Chris, do you remember what we had kind of estimated on just not including engineering? The total was what we were estimating is about 65,000, what it would come up to, I believe, but maybe you've got more details on that.
Is it basically the difference?
Yeah, that'd be accurate. Yeah, it's the RRP units. The last project that was part of that purchase, those I think they're about $9,000 or $10,000 just for the RRP unit itself, and then probably one of the $35,000 to $40,000 range to complete the curb ramp improvements associated with that. So yeah, it should just be around $45,000 to $50,000 should be about the construction estimate. And with the project going through the MnDOT process here, if construction costs do come in higher, if the bids do come in higher, there may be additional availability of funds. And after the bids are open, that would go through MnDOT for concurrence on approval before you award the project. And if they have additional funds, they would provide them at that time. Otherwise, it'd be up to the city to make up the difference.
Thank you.
Are all four corners gonna be done, or just those two corners for ADA?
Chris, did you hear the question, Chris?
Yep, just the south two corners, the southwest and southeast corners. All four corners are not 100% ADA accessible. The south two have to be brought up to full compliance because of the RRP installation, so they have to have buttons in certain spots and all that stuff. The north two don't necessarily have a hindrance on accessibility, but they don't meet what we would consider to be our current standard. But they are not proposed for improvement at this time.
Okay, thank you.
And for a project of this size, is it typical to enter into an hourly not to exceed instead of a flat fee for the work that SEH would be doing?
Yeah, I think for agreements that we've had in the past, we would hope that they wouldn't go over up to that amount, but if it does, we wouldn't actually go over that total. So I guess we'd be hopeful that we wouldn't spend all that, but it might take all that. As I noted, and as Chris has gone through these projects before, just having all the strings attached to it, it's as much work as a much larger project. So just unfortunately the way it is for that.
Yeah, and I wasn't really concerned about the dollar amount, but just the fact that it's not a flat fee versus an hourly. So that was the question I had, if it was just typical on a project of this size.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the cap on it for the not to
Yeah.
exceed amount, so
Yeah.
I think we're comfortable.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve the contract.
I will make the motion that staff, not to exceed the, what, no, is it, you've got 18,000 on this one, you've got 58 on this one, so the grand amount that you need those action for is 18,300, is that correct?
Not to exceed 18,300 in hourly.
Okay.
With SEH, yes.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Just for two signs. Amazes me. Okay. Now, at this time, the public is invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda. Is there anybody that wants to speak to the council that's not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move to the public hearing, franchise agreement with CenterPoint Energy. We have to have a public hearing for this franchise agreement, so I will open that public hearing. Does anybody want to speak to the franchise agreement?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
So, as you may remember back about a year ago when I was hired, one of the things the council wanted me to look at was the various franchise agreements, since most of them were coming up. In terms of a natural gas franchise, it's something I hadn't really worked on, so Ken Ondich here had some experience sitting in on some of the pre-meetings. I also reached out to Scott Riggs quite a bit. We ended up using a model ordinance that CenterPoint Energy sent us, as well as using a model ordinance from the league for reference. And have kind of been working over the last 9 or 10 months or so to put something together that works for both of us. Kind of some of the more meaningful points in here are ensuring that language is not present in the document that would allow CenterPoint to install a transmission line through the city. That was something that was pretty big. Coming from Colorado, it's actually quite common to have gas lines running through cities, and I know some states have major problems with those. So they pushed a little bit on it, but we were able to basically get language in there that won't allow for transmissions lines just to come through the city at any point. We also wanted to make sure that language was present to allow for a franchise fee. We don't currently have a franchise fee through natural gas, from what I can tell. Looking back on history, the council in the past always felt that was just an extra tax on citizens, because those are usually just pass-throughs. But language is present in the agreement should council ever decide they want to implement a franchise fee. And then just making sure that CenterPoint is aware that this is not an exclusive franchise for CenterPoint, and should at any point the city council decide they would like to entertain competition, they may. It doesn't force us one way or the other. So I think those are kind of the main highlights of what is in this agreement. But I will attempt to field any questions you may have.
okay. Any questions?
Just to understand, when you talk about franchise fee, I probably agree with that, try to understand not to do it, but is there, city involvement in work that's being done? Like before Main Street were done, they went all the way through and did a lot of work on all the properties, I think, on Main Street. Is there work that the city's involved in, that the city staff is involved in anytime they do work like that, or any other project? Or is it just, we don't incur any costs by that?
I guess could you?
There is, they have to apply for a digging permit through me, and then we have to do inspections if they're digging in the road right away at all.
So there's a permit fee they pay?
There is no fee to the permit, but they do have to file a digging permit. There's no fee to it.
I think
That,
I was gonna say, usually the idea with those is just so we're aware of work that is going on.
Okay, so you're not inspecting it afterwards, or,
if they're digging in the road right away, it is inspected, yes.
so,
It's about a half hour that they go out there, make sure it's put at the proper depth, and then, they give them the clear, make sure the road bed's being built back to where it's supposed to be. So
okay.
yeah, there is a little bit of inspection, but this got brought up about 5 years ago that we talked about implementing a fee, but we felt like that just discourages them actually filing the proper paperwork and letting us do the inspections that we're supposed to be doing. And then, a couple days later, you find out that they did some work and you don't even know who did it, and now you're chasing them down. So this way, there's no fee, but they are always calling in to make sure that it's done right and calling in for permits and stuff like that. So
Okay.
I would be a little hesitant on charging a permit fee for that, for a digging permit.
And then it's probably a stupid question, but are all residents serviced by natural gas or by CenterPoint?
Yep.
All buildings or,
Yep.
okay,
Everybody in the city limits.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, they should have all access to it. I guess I can't speak as to all, whether they're hooked up or not, but they do all have access to it. If that makes sense.
yeah, I would just get into the fairness of not charging a fee if we had one part that didn't, but I'm comfortable with it all.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, I would take a motion to approve this franchise.
Mr.
Oh,
Mayor?
wait, I forgot, we're in the public
Yep,
hearing.
so this is just the
Thank
public
you.
hearing. This does need to be approved by 2 readings, so in this case, we'll just close the public hearing.
Yep.
And then the first reading will actually be in a couple items.
Yep.
So,
So, I would take a motion to close this public hearing.
so moved.
Is there a second? Seconded by Bruce. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, now on to ordinance number 328.
All right, I'll take that one. We have tonight for introduction, the companion amendment that is in the zoning ordinance that would allow up to 2 city council members to be appointed to the planning commission at times when we do not have citizen applicants to fill all the seats in the planning commission. So if you remember on August 24th, or excuse me, back on August 15th, the council approved in the second reading their amendment. Planning commission was required to hold a public hearing on the zoning ordinance amendment. That was held on August 24th. We did not have any public comment at that hearing. And the planning commission ended up recommending to the council tonight to introduce and hold the first reading for the amendment to the zoning ordinance. Basically, the language matches what the already approved in the city code, and this would just match that in the zoning ordinance so that they are consistent between the two different documents. So just looking for an introduction tonight. We would have the second reading and adoption on September 19th.
All right, are there any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the next one.
We can do approve on first reading.
We do need.
Oh, we need
motion
approval
to
for the
approve on
first
first
reading? Okay, I take a motion to approve the first reading. Sorry, everyone.
So moved.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Motion by Maggie, seconded by Rick, to approve the first reading of ordinance number 328. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. All right, ordinance number 329.
All right, so ordinance number 329, myself and Bruce are gonna tag team this one a little bit, but beginning last winter, we started working on this amendment, particularly to section 5101 regarding the ownership of water service lines and where they would take ownership versus where the city would continue to maintain ownership. So I'll let Bruce cover that in a second. And there's a couple other changes that we ended up making to chapter 5102 for water conservation. And finally, 52.40 for building sewers and connections. And all these were really housekeeping items over and above what Bruce will go over with you in a minute here. I think with that, I'll maybe just let Bruce kind of cover to the parts on the water service changes, which are really the major portion of why the ordinance was brought forth to you here today. And then Mitch, I don't know if you can go on my computer to show what I've got up. Little schematic Bruce did hand out as well. I'll just put it up on the overhead for anybody that would be watching the meeting online or at home. All right.
I handed out there, so you have that typical residential water service, just that diagram that kind of depicts a typical water service and who's gonna maintain ownership of the certain parts of it. What I'll go over is section A and section B, which are the major changes that are in this ordinance that pertain to the utility water service line and or the customer's water service line. Primarily, and I won't go through it all, but if you have questions in any part of it, then feel free to ask. But the highlighted areas that I want to touch on is the primary language that is being changed. In section A there, all water connections and lines will be considered private and belong to the property owner from the connection at the curb valve to the property owner's water meter. It shall be the property owner's responsibility to maintain and repair the connections and the lines from the connection at the curb stop valve to the property's water meter. That's where the change is really initiating. So if you look at the diagram, the utility will now take care of any repairs from the city's water main located typically in the street or the boulevard in some areas to and include the curb stop that is typically in the utility right of way and or it's typically on city property. Probably 85% of the water leaks that occur in New Prague are encompassed in that area, and that is also the most expensive area to fix. primary driver for, I mean, I've been trying to work on this the last couple of years and presenting different ways of doing it to the commission, and we finally decided on what we were gonna do is we included into the base fee a portion that we would allot making repairs on this part of the customer service, and to include the curb stop. It also gives us the ability to operate and maintain that curb stop. Should the customer not pay the bill, they could actually tell us, you stay off the curb stop. So it did not allow us a capability of turning the water service off. And having ownership of that curb stop now, then we have the legal ability to put our wrench on that curb stop and turn it off. So that'll clear that up. It'll also clear up the maintenance of those. We have a lot of curb stops in town that are in disrepair. Typically not very expensive to fix, but customers were never really enthused about making repairs due to cost, and they didn't really care if we had the capability of turning that water service on or off. We have a pretty good running list of, my staff has a good list of what ones are operable or inoperable, and we intend to GIS those locations and take care of them. So that going forward, we don't have those problems with those curb stops. Again, going over to section B, the 1-inch line really depicts that it's a residential service. None of this applies to commercial services. Commercial services are a standalone. And then B of B, NPUC will be responsible for the section of water service line that is connected to the city water main, to include the corporation at the main, which is the valve that is at the main, and the curb stop valve and standpipe located in the public right-of-way. The rest of it just kind of depicts should your service be in a driveway and that kind of thing, whose responsibility it is for repairs, and going forward if they're settling or anything like that, or irrigation lines. Really not, that wording didn't change much from the previous one. In section 1 on the other side, on the next page, water meters. One change on there, and then 3 under that. We had a little bit of discrepancy in regards to multi-unit residential buildings, where there are some residential buildings that are only fed with 1 water meter, and then it's divided up amongst the tenants in that building. We wanted to make sure that if that's the case, we had a couple landlords that tried to put the water meters account into one of the tenants' names, and therefore he wouldn't be responsible for it, and that just causes a lot of troubles in regards to billing, and other tenants under the same roof or in the same property we're not happy with in regards to water billing. So this clears up some.
And I think state statute required that
Correct.
change to be made as well to our code.
And that complies with state statute now, so we updated that on there. Let me stop there. Is there any other questions in regards just to the water service?
Just wordage thing, when you're saying curb stop, as far as this diagram, are you referring to the curb valve as
Curb
far as the
valve, yeah.
diagram?
Yeah, they're the same.
But not, is there such a thing as a curb box, or is it just a pipe, or?
Yeah, the curb box is a little device that kind of houses the standpipe there. That's what that sits on.
So is that part of the city's ownership?
Anything encompassing in that what we call the curb box and its riser
Okay,
is included in what the city or the utility will be responsible for.
So basically numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right, and that little kind of boxed in area below there kind of shows everything that's included that will be the utility's responsibility. You may be asking, in regards to cost and repairs. So the commission has asked staff to track repairs annually, and I've allowed for in the base fees about $12,000 to $14,000 a year in making those repairs. If we go over that or stay consistently under it, then we'll adjust that base fee accordingly each year. So it's pretty straightforward. It also kind of gets rid of having third-party companies. You've probably been solicited yourself by being able to buy insurance for your service line and that type of thing. That way, we keep that all in-house, and we don't have, third-party companies trying to solicit customers here and sell them a product that really is not necessary, so. Just a couple, Ken had mentioned, we had just cleaned up a little bit of other language, on A of page 5 of 9. It's just, a little bit of wording in regards to, should we have to have conservation, rules put in place or get to level 1, that myself being called out as the general manager can work with the mayor and set those parameters if we have to do water conservation throughout the city. Before it was worded as Public Works Director, so that was just a little bit of housekeeping on that part. And I think that's all I had. Ken, did you have something on the sewer yet?
Yeah, and just on 5204, just since we're in there changing a couple of titles, we changed what had been in 5240, what had been referred to between, I think it was plumbing inspector. We broke that out between Public Works, who looks at anything basically at the main for sewer connections, and then building inspection staff as it relates to anything inside of a building. And then we also deleted a provision that mentioned like a $50 or a $25 residential connection fee or a $50 industrial connection fee. Our connection fees are far exceeding that, and that had never been changed from many years ago, so we deleted that language. So that's really all that changed in that last section. I did want to note that we, in our working with the city attorney, we lost the red line copies as we went. So unfortunately, to get this to you without spending hours upon hours of going back through and re-redlining, we brought it basically showing the deletion of the old language and the new. That's what we tried to just call out, the language that changed here tonight, even though there's really not that many changes. But we could probably get that cleaned up before the next reading if that's something you wanted to see. But it just got to be more work, and we didn't have that tracking left in our Word document. So apologize for that.
Well, it looks like you took a lot of words out. It used to be, we could say from the meter is yours and the other side of the meter is ours, but thank you for taking all that wordage out.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 329.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Sean. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, C.
Yes, ordinance 330 is the first reading for the CenterPoint Energy franchise agreement. And I can kind of go over it again if you'd like. Otherwise,
I'll make a motion that we approve the first reading of ordinance 330.
Okay, there's been a motion made to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion seconded by Rick. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. All right, the next item is the resolution approving a variance.
All right, I have a quick PowerPoint to give a summary of the Planning Commission discussion on this item. So again, this is a request for variance V6 2022 for a setback variance for a accessory structure to be reduced from a normal 30-foot front setback to 10 feet. And the applicant is Matt Muschitz. Again, the applicant made this request for their property at 1003 9th Street Court Southeast. It was a shed that was put up. We don't require permits for sheds that are 200 square feet or under, and this one's below that building permit threshold, but we had received a phone call that somebody was concerned that it was not meeting setbacks. We went out and investigated and found that, and in fact, was sitting approximately 4 feet 10 inches from the property line along 9th Street Court Southeast. Met all the other property line setbacks, including the north property line, where it sat 6 foot 9 inches, the minimum is 6 feet for that area. During the Planning Commission meeting, it was noted that we have a 10-foot drainage utility easement along 9th Street Court Southeast. And in order to get the shed outside of that easement, it would need to be moved 5 feet 2 inches east. The reason for that was because there was a gas line and a electric line located within that easement area in a very close proximity to the front side of that shed. So in order to have the shed out of the way, for those reasons, and in case there needed to be any, maintenance work done, that was the requirement that that be moved, 5 foot 2 inches to the east. The other concern was from Public Works with snow removal being cul-de-sac. A lot of the snow is kind of pushed in that area towards that shed, and we were worried it could be damaged in heavy snowfall years. One thing the applicant pointed out during the meeting that they received incorrect information during the location of the shed. That was information our building inspector at the time had given out, but the shed actually was not put in the location where that was indicated on that information, so I just wanted to note that as well. And then finally, we didn't have any other public comment at the meeting on the 24th of August, but the Planning Commission did recommend approval. So a couple of maps I'll put up here. Main thing that was focused on at the meeting was this is an unusually shaped property. They don't have much of a backyard between 10th Avenue and the back of their home. And really their backyard is kind of their north portion or their north side yard. And a lot of people tend to walk from the path along 10th Avenue into the 9th Street Court Southeast area. The applicants felt that having the shed there will help cut down on people realizing that it actually is private property and it is a yard. The map over on the right-hand side of the overhead here, you can see the current location of the shed is kind of shown in the outlined red area there, which the 10-foot drainage utility easement is shown along the front there. So again, moving it back 5 feet 2 inches to the east will get it out of the easement area on that west side of the lot adjacent to 9th Street Court. Will still obviously be a 20-foot encroachment into that setback area, but the Planning Commission agreed to have that be the case, and it leaves a bigger area for the usable portion of their yard to remain open and not have a shed. Basically would put the shed out in the middle of their side yard, kind of in an awkward location if it were required to be moved to meet all the setbacks. So that was a discussion that we had at the meeting. And just know that the property is on medium density residential, as are all the other homes in that district. And then it was also pointed out there's a couple other sheds in the neighborhood at 1002 and 1012 that obviously did not have the issue with the setbacks along the 9th Street Court there. Here's actually the electric line shown in red, just within almost a foot of the front of the shed there, and then the gas line shown in the white. So both of those in a bit too close to proximity, but that's just due to the fact that the shed is located within the easement. So again, recommendation is that the general location is good. It just got to be moved 5 foot 2 inches further east, and it can remain in that northern portion of the property. Just a couple more photos to kind of show how close it is to the front property line there. But again, unique shaped lot. A little unusual shape. Really wouldn't find a lot quite like this anywhere else in town. So ultimately, staff and the Planning Commission does recommend approval to allow that setback to be 10 feet from 9th Street Court Southeast. With those findings, and that is all found within that resolution, which is in the packet tonight. So with that, I'll leave these couple of photos up for you and stand for any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Ken, is the shed on a cement slab or affixed to the cement slab?
No, it is not. I think it's just on a gravel bed, if I'm recalling correctly. So obviously there's gonna be some work involved to, pull it back. There's been some pretty good landscaping done around the outside of that shed as well, unfortunately. So a little bit of that'll have to be adjusted, but I don't believe it's anchored on a concrete slab, just some gravel.
So it was not built on skids then, or a movable shed?
Yeah, it's movable. It's not, anchored to a concrete slab.
Well, I'm just referring to a lot of the sheds that are built have the 2x10s or something double, and they're like skids where you can move them.
I guess I'm not sure what's on that.
No, it's
Timber.
not. It's
Not-
not a gravel pad, and I think it's anchored on one side, Matt thought, but he thought he could probably just get in there and hit that, so we can.
Okay,
We're hoping it's not anchored in the center.
okay. I was concerned just if there was cement slabs and what would be done with them. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, does somebody want to offer the resolution?
I'll Make a motion to pass the resolution 22090603 for variance V6 2022.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Maggie, seconded by Rick. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Good luck with your,
All right, now we're down to general business. The next item up is SmartLink presentation.
Actually, Mitch, I'm gonna put something back up on here for this too. I'll put the PowerPoint up for you.
Hello.
Right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Alan Herman. I'm with SmartLink Mobility Management, and here to talk to you tonight about some transportation options for the city of New Prague proper. As SmartLink Mobility Management, we provide basically transportation information. So we are not operators per se of transportation as we were in 2015. So SmartLink buses that you see right now and so forth, that was operators in 2015. Since that time, we've changed and actually are contractors now. And that's why you're starting to see TransitLink buses instead of SmartLink buses. The same type of logo and so forth, but again, TransitLink is actually a metropolitan council transportation system, not a county type transportation system. So as mobility management, that's really what our job is to link people to the transportation that is found in their area. So in other words, we don't recommend to a citizen in New Prague a solution that is only found in Savage. So it makes sense to understand what is available in your area and then match that to the need and so forth. We also coordinate non-emergency medical transportation, which is medical assistance clients that qualify for that. Then also here to talk to you tonight about our Hopscotch volunteer driver program, which is something that has changed from pre-COVID to now post-COVID. And also that we also help, again, all citizens understand what is available in their area as far as transportation options. I'm going to begin with Dial-A-Ride or TransitLink. That is a service that is available. It is a two-county system, so Scott and Carver counties are actually a cooperative agreement for that service in that area. Again, it is funding directly from the Metropolitan Council, so the county is a flow-through basically for services and so forth. And there's an amount basically each day or each year and so forth that the Metropolitan Council says, here's what's available to you, Scott County, for Dial-A-Ride services. It is a reservation type service, so in other words, you need to call in and reserve a ride. It's not like an Uber or Lyft where it's more on demand. You do have to make a reservation ahead of time to make that piece. The service is available 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. The reservations are from 7 a.m. to 3:30 Monday through Friday. And it is considered a door-to-door or curb-to-curb. So in other words, they'll typically just drop you off at the curb. But if you need assistance, you would ask for it, and then they would assist you to the door and back and forth from the bus. It's very cost effective. It's anywhere from $350 or $450 each way, and that's actually based on the time of day that you use it. They call it a peak period versus non-peak. A peak period, you're going to pay more for it because there's more demand for it. So peak periods are 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then again from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Everything else in between is non-peak and a smaller fare of $1 less. So rides can be requested. I put in here 2 to 7, but actually if the time is available and the buses are available, you can request a same day type trip. In 2017, Scott County actually added to this service, and they said they took some of their transportation tax dollars and said we are going to add evening and weekend service. It's not much. It's one bus for about 8 hours. 8 hours per day on the weekend, and then from 6 to 9 p.m. during the week. And this has actually been very successful, but it is again, on-demand service, so you have to call up to 7 days in advance for that small amount of the business that is out there. At this point in time, that service isn't fully used. So in other words, just like everything else, there's a shortage of drivers. Right now, we're operating about 85% of what could be capacity for this system. And that, again, that's only based on the fact that we can't find more drivers and so forth. We are actually working with the Met Council. They are going to increase or demand, basically, the provider put minimum wages to their bus drivers of $20 an hour, which we think will help in that situation. And another thing what we're running into is actually shortages of buses. We have not had a new bus since early 2020, and it doesn't look like we're gonna see any until 2023. So the provider has had to keep on repairing, stretching, using these vehicles over and over, because again, there is just nothing out there to be had. The shortages are nationwide, and they say it's gonna come, but we'll wait and see if we actually see new buses in 2023, so. The other thing that we actually did, a lot of our buses, most of them right now are actually what we call CDL type buses. They need a driver because they're over 15 passengers. And what we're going to now is a smaller bus, so that we don't have to have a CDL driver to drive that. What we're hoping for here is not to be in competition then with school bus drivers and so forth. We can bring in people that don't have a CDL and then drive these buses. So it makes more sense to do that. Looks like this. Also then, I'd like to talk to you about tonight is actually our Hopscotch Volunteer Driver Program. It's new and improved. We've had a volunteer driver program for over 40 years in Scott County. But what we saw even before COVID was that there were some issues that are causing some issues on the volunteer driver side. One was the fact that on the 1090, they would actually receive a 1099. So here they are, volunteer their services, but if they were reimbursed more than $600 a year, the federal government actually taxed them and gave them a 1099 on their services. And the other thing that kind of came into some issues was that Uber and Lyft became very popular and so forth. And insurance companies didn't understand the fact that volunteer drivers are actually just reimbursed for their mileage versus a Uber or Lyft, which actually is a paid driver. They are hired and paid for versus a volunteer who's actually volunteering their time, just receiving reimbursement for their mileage and so forth. So what we decided to do basically was come up with a new twist. How can we actually take care of those two things in a different type of scenario? So what we did was we found a grant that would support us, and we put a different type of system out there where the buses, the small vans that we purchased and so forth are actually can be driven then by these volunteers, and so that they just jump in these into these vans, perform the trip, put the van back, and it's all good. There is no cost to them. There is no wear and tear on their vehicle, and so forth. So it's a little different model than what we've seen before, where before all they did was they drove their own vehicle and so forth. So these vehicles are insured, owned, and maintained by the county. We received a grant that got them about 50% cost match on those pieces. They're driven by volunteers, and what we try to do is put the vans actually in the areas that they are located. So for instance, our biggest push, we wanted to start in certain communities, and Belle Plaine was our first city that we started in. And we've got now a van in that community at the library, and we are performing things like food shelf and anchor center type trips with that van. So again, and what we're looking for is kind of other partnerships. Our goal was basically to take these vans and put them into the more rural areas of Scott County, which would be Belle Plaine, Jordan, New Prague, and Elko Newmarket. Because basically, if you think about it, Savage, Prior Lake, and Shakopee have more transportation resources already. So let's put something out there in these areas for the availability of the rural type customers or clients or citizens. So some of the things that we are going to do. So with that, we're here kind of talking about, again, how the city could be a partner in this hopscotch type piece. So we have been using the libraries as a place to park the vehicle, knowing, of course, that the libraries are operated by the library, but owned by the city as far as the property is concerned. And then what we would be looking for as far as we're concerned is we need a key box, basically. Something where the volunteer can get into the library, grab the key for the van, and then take the van, put it back, and that kind of stuff. And then understanding too, we haven't had our first snow, so last year we started it just in December. We didn't have much problem with snow yet from December, but so this will be our first year of battling snow removal for those vans located in those areas and so forth. So the next basically is what does it look like? In other words, how does this make a difference as far as that program is concerned? So we basically put out there as SmartLink is their hometown heroes, right? They are performing things for their local community. And a huge piece of this is actually the volunteers. So in other words, if we don't have enough volunteers, we have less service to be available. We need a lot of volunteers basically to offer. We've got 3 vans right now with those abilities and so forth. And they are located right now at Belle Plaine, at our Marshall Road Transit Station in Shakopee, and at the Public Works Building in Jordan at this point in time. So we are very grateful for all those that are volunteering, and we're seeing a different actually kind of volunteer. If you think about volunteer drivers, they were always retired, sometimes in their 70s, 80s, performing these trips. We are actually now getting volunteers that are in their 20s. They're doing their job during the day, coming home and performing things like food shelf type work and so forth, especially now in Belle Plaine, and we also started up in Elko New Market, and we're very close to working with the Jordan food shelf also as to those pieces. So, for instance, in the Elko New Market area, I know we make a trip. There's deliveries all the way out to New Prague on a regular type basis. So we know we are serving New Prague with that purpose also. Some of the pictures that you see and so forth. This was some winter scenes, of course, with our, as you can see, Commissioner Weckenbrecke, our volunteer, and then actually a commissioner from the Department of Human Services, as part of their grant was being funded for that purpose and so forth. And last but not least, we talk about travel training. Again, this is the way we teach basically people what is available in your area. And this could be a one-on-one conversation, it could be a phone call, it could actually be teaching them how to access or call in or make reservations, or how much is this gonna cost, how do I pay for it? And it's more than just even public transit, but it's many different services that are out there. Again, wondering and really trying to find out what it is that citizen needs or wants, and so forth. Some of the other transportation resources that we have for you specifically, some of these are going to be located in other communities, but again, would be available to you. MVTA is that commuter service. It is available in Shakopee, Prior Lake, and Savage. It does have routes to the Mall of America or the Burnswood Transit Station. Uber, Lyft, or GoGo Grandparent, those are all type of on-demand type services. It's the availability out here and in rural areas is usually based on where do they have the drivers. I'm afraid it's also kind of one of those systems that if there's nobody driving in that area and they see that trip, if it doesn't make a lot of sense to them, price-wise and so forth, they don't have to take the trip. So that's what, what happens in the more rural areas. And also, you do have to have a cell phone and you do have to have a credit card for those services. You can't have those services without that. There are some taxi cabs and medical vans, but they are also struggling with that same type of driver shortage on that piece. I do want to talk a little bit about True Transit and Vine Transportation. True Transit is a service actually located in LeSueur County. But one of the partnerships that we've worked out with them is that Met Council has some, let's put it that way, and they say, okay, because New Prague is very unique, in fact, that it's split between two counties. But the Met Council says that basically a citizen on the Scott County side are the people that are served by Met Transit Link. So we can't go over to the LeSueur side, pick somebody up and bring them into Scott County. But we can pick somebody up on the Scott County side and bring them just a couple miles into LeSueur County. So we can serve that way, we just can't serve the other way. So what we did was we sat down with True Transit and said, okay, we can't do this. MnDOT, who is under True Transit and Vine Transportation, actually allows that. So they now can service all of the city of New Prague, and they take care of those trips that are, again, within the city limits and both sides of basically Highway 19. Differences on True Transit, they do serve, again, Monday through Friday, except for Tuesdays in New Prague. So Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, they just don't have the ability also to service all 5 days. And one of the things I think, if you guys are hearing this and so forth, what I'd like to propose is we should try to actually work with senior centers and senior buildings and actually see if you can get, I guess, certain shopping day and time, because that would actually help out True Transit. It would help out your citizens. So it kind of coordinates things. And so, for instance, you had 4 shoppers, but one was going each day. That's a lot of wasted time and effort. Again, True Transit also is a multi-county type system, so anything that you can do to save time and money would be appreciated. So again, if there's anything that you hear, please contact me and we'll kind of work those pieces out as far as coordination and getting a good model for, again, serving the citizens of New Prague. As far as costs and so forth, True Transit costs $5 each way. Vine Transportation is like the sister of True Transit. They are the volunteer driver piece to that system, similar to Hopscotch. You also, other things that are available would be the 169 connection. It runs right along 169 from Mankato all the way to the St. Paul Union Depot or the Mall of America. There are also type services called ProAct, which is located in Shakopee. So actually TransitLink and our services actually do transport quite a few people from city of New Prague to those services in Shakopee. And one of the things we have been able to do is, even though Met Council says we can't pick somebody up on that side, we actually have what we call a hub. So people from LeSueur County can meet actually at the Coburns, and we pick up at the Coburns and drop off people for at Coburns on a daily type basis. Again, a good coordination model and allows that system to operate and again help those citizens that are really trying to get to that ProAct system in the city of Shakopee. Uplift Transportation is a taxi cab, or you might see them as a minivan type transportation. They're fairly new to this area, but again are doing a nice job. There's also Tri-County Taxi, which actually is located in New Prague. And I think that's all I've really got as far as transportation resources and so forth. Any questions, comments, concerns about transportation?
Any questions?
Yeah, typically, how do you get the word out about your services?
Yep, so we have a website, and actually we advertise also on, you'll see us, on the Scott County newsletter, there, the scene, is also, and this week Thursday, I'm actually gonna be on, K-Check, so we do some radio ads, on that station also, and we're also going to do, we do, Nextdoor and, Facebook. So we're trying to basically get out there on the digital type world, knowing that newspapers, I'm afraid, are just not getting the job done for us. So we have to, again, go to the more digital type aid.
Right. You probably know that we have a couple of senior housing here.
Yes.
And do you provide information to their administrative staff so that they're able to disseminate it to?
Correct, yep, a lot of times we'll send them flyers, about what's available and so forth, and I think what I'll do is, especially with that last page and so forth, kind of print that basically out and send that type of information, because that kind of information, I'm afraid, does change very quickly. Taxi cabs, I'm afraid, they come and go. COVID was not a good thing for them either. They couldn't transport people during that time. So that is a difficulty. We have to constantly kind of check and see, are you still in business? We actually were contracted with a company to do some of our non-emergency medical transportation, and by the time we got the contract, we get no answer from them. So they must have gone out of business even when we were going through that contracting process. So.
But you had mentioned that someone could call SmartLink directly and get a lot of this information.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I imagine, I'm trying to remember if I saw anything at our library, some sort of a flyer, some information. I know that our libraries are pretty heavily used.
Sure, I can get them to
That'd be
make sure
great.
that, yeah.
Thank you.
One thing I would like to mention, we did make contact with Melistrana, Praha Village, Phillip Square, and Mill Pond. And while none of them were able to attend tonight, we did send out this packet of information to each of them. I also wanted to mention, it sounds like Commissioner Weckman-Brecky is on, and I don't know if she has anything to add.
Mr. Mayor, would that be okay? Can I say a few things?
Sure.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Sorry I had to join virtually tonight. I had another meeting that ran right up, so I've been watching your meeting. Happy to see what's going on in New Prague. I thank Alan for being there because I do take calls from several New Prague residents here and there, mostly senior citizens, trying to navigate the county line issue and getting the rides to and from grocery stores and other facilities. So I think it's great Alan's there to explain this. Just wanted to kind of give a little bit of context to this, that of course the county's providing this information. We're trying to connect people, but really from a levy perspective, our transportation services that Alan's talking about, they're levy neutral. We're taking in grants and funding for specific purposes and trying to administer that as efficiently as we can. So that does put some limitations on what we could do and can do, because right now the county board has decided that, we'll do this as long as it's not impacting our county taxpayers. So we're doing the best we can with the resources coming in. Always looking for help promoting things. Great idea about making sure the libraries are on board. I know that I guess I've talked with some of the administrators at your senior living communities, and I know some of them use these services more than others. Many of the services Alan talked about tonight, at least my understanding in the New Prague area, are used by senior citizens, folks with disabilities, that type of thing. So pass the information around, pass the numbers. For sure, if you know people who want to be volunteer drivers within the community, it's a great thing. I hear all the time from both drivers and passengers who really get a lot out of that relationship and that system. So that's all I'd have to say. But of course, I'm here if you guys have any questions for me too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. What were the times again that SmartLink or
Transit Link,
Transit Link, I'm sorry, runs?
6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
Monday through Friday. The extended weekend service is actually 7:30 to 4.
Yep. Okay.
And then during the week, that's on Saturday and Sunday, and then on the weekdays, it's actually from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay, extended. Okay. And then that hopscotch, can they take physically disabled people?
Our vans are capable
vans.
of that, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
but we're giving the volunteers a choice as to whether they feel comfortable tying down wheelchairs. And at this point, none have stepped forward and said, yes, I want to do that. We're hoping that, again, as we get more volunteers in, we've got 9 volunteers right now. 3 of them are in process, 12. And we think there should be at least 20 to 30 volunteers to make this a really good, robust type system. So that's, again, why we're here is saying, if you know volunteers, you know people that, again, can give back to the community and become hometown heroes, that's really what we need to build this service up and actually make it a very viable solution.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I have a couple. Alan, you were referring to people congregating at Coburn's. You were referring to Coburn's in New Prague?
Yes.
And then to get them to Shakopee, were you using the True Transit system to get them there?
Nope, that would be Transit Link. Yes.
So you're able to go into Leesburg County and pick somebody up?
When we decide that that's a hub. So Met Council allows us basically to do that when we're saying, okay, we looked at places that would be on this side of New Prague, and we went to Met Council and said, there really isn't a good parking lot that is plowed all the time and available and so forth. And so they allowed us basically, again, as a piece or a buffer basically between the two counties to use Coburn's as that hub is the best way we put it.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Who is eligible to use Transit Link and Hopscotch?
Sure. Basically, all citizens are eligible for Transit Link. It is open to all citizens. There's no qualifying. They don't have to be a senior or anything like disabled or anything like that. Hopscotch, we're kind of stepping into that. So in other words, we started basically with the food shelves because when we started it, we couldn't even be transporting citizens yet. So we started with that, and now we started finally passenger transports in May, and we started with the Anchor Center, and the next part we're looking at is the Family Resource Center. So we're looking at it really more of as a reference points from human services, looking at where's their biggest need and so forth, but also things that are reoccurring, so that we can handle and say, okay, we need to find a volunteer for Tuesdays and Fridays. Okay, let's concentrate on that. We're not ready to open it up like we would Transit Link, because again, we need many more volunteers to make that available. We don't want to basically offer it, because we also know that if you offer something like that and they call up and don't get what they want, they'll never call us back again. So we've been down that road before, so we want to be very careful on how we roll this piece out.
And maybe you could delve into that a little more. I'm just a little unclear of what the parameters of how you're choosing that. So is it people that are on a client list for the food shelf and you're taking those people to the food shelf?
Or like Belle Plaine, actually, they call into the Belle Plaine food shelf, the food is all packed for them, and the driver just delivers to their homes.
Okay.
Yep.
And these other, what's the commonality between these anchor centers in Nemnit, and what's the theme, or what are you using to?
Sure. It's basically as what we see as need. So in other words, as mobility managers, we're the ones kind of getting those requests and what's coming in and so forth. And we saw 3 things. One was the Anchor Center, which was the health public, or the community health type center, mental health type center in Shakopee. So we transport now people from Belle Plaine and Jordan to that center at this point in time. That mental health center also wants us to take on some people from like Savage, Prior Lake into Shakopee. But again, we haven't even taken that on yet because of our volunteer needs and so forth. The other piece that we're looking at is the Family Resource Center, which is opening up in Jordan. The reason we're choosing that one is we're also working with their food shelf, and their food shelf and the Family Resource Center is actually open at the same time. So that made a lot of sense for us to, okay, if we do this, can we do both things at the same time and actually be very effective with the few volunteers that we do have? So,
Have you determined there's a need for our local food shelf to have this service for that?
If we could find some volunteers that would be, kind of match that, yes.
You believe there is that need?
I would assume there is, yes, well, when we discovered that in Elko New Market and Belle Plaine, correct?
Okay, so that would, the scenario would be, we would have a van?
Possibly.
Okay, I'm not gonna have you stick your neck out or anything.
Well, like I said, we have 3 vans, so we can rotate basically to where there are volunteers. But we would have to have someplace in New Prague to basically have the van sit, and then also the ability to check that van in and out.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is paperless city council policy, packet policy.
Yes, this is something we've discussed a little bit, kind of through the visioning process, really transitioning the city council to a kind of a paperless system. The first step I see in this is moving to a system, that really just involves us converting the packet to PDF form, which we kind of do already, and then really accessing the packet through that form. The policy that I've included in your packet kind of lays out the parameters of this and figures that we'd start on December 5th. The reason why I've pushed it out that far would be to allow us to kind of do a transition period, where we have both of them going out and the transition is slowly. It'd also allow us to make sure that all the council members and staff have the ability to actually access and manipulate those packets. I know we talked about it last time, I believe, at our budget meeting, about the the ability to manipulate a packet in PDF. So I was messing around with Adobe Acrobat Reader, which is the free one you can download, and they must have made upgrades to it because you are actually now able to write or whatnot, if you've got a stylus on there, or draw, or whatever you want to do on that PDF and save it. So I don't believe we would need to upgrade or purchase any sort of PDF editing software at that level for council members to be able to save comments or whatnot on those packets that they would like. But if for some reason that doesn't work for us, I mean, we do have, again, it would give us 3 months to be able to kind of work those bugs out so that we are kind of able to hit the ground running on that. So I guess at this reason, or at this point, I would recommend going forward with this paperless city council policy based kind of on discussions we've had in the past. But free to answer any other questions or concerns you may have about this.
Well, Josh, I was under the impression that if, let's say Dwayne or myself is making notes during our meeting, that anybody could request to see that, to see those notes. I don't know why that came up before, but we would have to provide that to somebody. So how would we do that digitally if we're making notes on the electronic version?
Yeah, I guess I was not aware that that was a thing. I can definitely look into it to see if that's the case.
Okay, well, I can't remember what the context was, but I remember it was years ago that, when Mayor Nikolai was still here, that any notes that we make onto our sheet, that the public could request.
That was from the last council. I was on I was documenting some stuff, and the guy wanted my piece of paper, and I said, no, you can't have it. And, the city attorney ended up telling me, just give him a piece of paper.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I mean, I can check with our city attorney, but
Yeah.
I guess I'd never heard of such a thing, as I know a lot of cities are going paperless, and so, but I can definitely check and see if that is a thing and kind of how some cities have gotten over that.
Yeah.
Because, if you write on your tablet, it's a different story. That's your paperwork. This is all public. You see what I mean?
well, yeah, there could be a distinction between the two. I was just
Yeah.
curious on
No, good.
if somebody, if
Good
you're
call.
manipulating the packet
Yep.
with our.
So, go ahead.
The Adobe thing, what I'm familiar with, Adobe just gives you the ability to do a comment, which is a box you can put in, and then you can draw lines and kind of write within on the document. You can't write in the borders. It's kind of difficult to do that, but, and then you need a touch screen, obviously, to do that.
Correct, yeah, so if you wanna write on it, you need a touchscreen of some sort. But it also gives you the ability, if you don't have a touchscreen, to kind of make a comment box and type in that comment box.
Right. I believe there's like I'm not sure how many additional higher levels of Adobe that you can get, but obviously their cost, you have to pay for them.
Correct, when I kind of preliminary looked into it, what would be Adobe Standard, I think it was called, was $15 a month. And Adobe Pro, which is all the bells and whistles, is $20 a month.
Yeah, and they're all subscription, I suppose, nowadays.
Okay. So do you need approval of this policy?
I would, because this would be, yeah, so if
Okay.
you wanna go forward with it, I don't know, I know Sean had a few questions, if you guys, being that we're putting this out so far, I can definitely see if I can get a hold of answers on those questions before we approve this.
Why don't you?
But, I mean, in the meantime, we'll keep working forward and continuing as is, until we get those questions answered, I guess.
Perfect.
What was the cost savings again for going digital?
So the digital, it's something, there are probably some unknown costs, but really what we're factoring in is the amount of paper that gets printed off. And I know that, Barb spends a large amount of time kind of sorting through all the packets and, getting them put together. This would just kind of be step one in the process of eliminating the paper of it. And then the next step is something we've kind of discussed in the 2023 budget, was actually implementing a program that would help work online too and kind of link all of that together, and make it really easily accessible for everybody and free up a lot of staff time internally of getting packets together.
Okay.
All right. Is everybody in agreement to wait until he finds those answers?
Yep.
Okay. Encroachment agreement with Chart at 1203 First Avenue Northwest.
I'll take that one. Mitch, I do have a slide on the overhead. So, most of the council members probably wouldn't recall this, but back in 2018, we had a conditional use permit that was issued for, what was called the, old Hoffman property on, north end of First Avenue Northwest, north of the creek. They had been allowed to have exterior storage out here. They actually made improvements to, the screening around the perimeter of the property, but they had not made any actual grading improvements, until, we received, some plan, submittals to have them do that, this year. With that plan set that was submitted, they asked about the possibility of, utilizing some of the future, or actually it is existing right away, but, is not improved at this point. And on the overhead, I've highlighted in red the area of First Avenue Northwest that is dedicated right away as of today, but it's not improved. They wanted to know if they could use that area just by leveling it out slightly and then planting some grass that they could use for some temporary storage space until First Avenue is at some point in the future extended northward through the property. Again, we don't have any project on the books to do that at this point. It would involve putting in a much larger bridge than the privately owned and improved one that exists to cross the creek currently, but.
So this is the one that that would free up all of them empty tanks there, and then they just use it in that red area?
No, this would be, so they wanna use the whole lot area that was previously approved, and as an additional, they wanna have this encroachment area that's shown on the red and the overhead. They wanna use that just until at what point we improve that for public road, some point in the future. So that's what the encroachment agreement that we have in the packet for consideration is tonight. City Attorney Scott Ridge drafted that up, to allow them hold the city harmless of any liability for having them use that area, until it is needed for public, improvement and public use.
I can't remember, does that encroachment area, or that right of way go all the way to, 12th Street then?
The right of way actually does not extend any further than as you see it here right now. The land directly to the north is, part of school district property, and there's not any dedicated right of way there at this point. It's unplatted.
So, I guess I'm wondering why don't we sell it or release it or?
The right of way, I think we have some utilities through there. I don't know, Bruce, you probably can speak to that more specifically.
We do have electric lines going through part.
You wanna turn your mic on?
And,
It must be old ones from when the Hoffmans lived there then?
you're correct.
Are
Yep,
they-
and part of them are still being utilized by the property owner there too, Chart. Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's gonna come a day when they're gonna want that redone around there. They're already talking that they'd like to have a commercial service in that, building that's on that property. But to this point, they haven't approached us on that.
If they would, is that how you think you would have the electric service? It would still go through that same area?
No, we would reroute it. Cause we have a large service kind of over by the football, by the stadium there. We would like to come from there, go west towards that white building, that white roof building there, and then tie back into First Avenue to create a loop feed for the Chart 22 building.
And you think it's just electrical that's,
To my knowledge, yes.
so in the future, I would envision us just releasing that, but,
Yeah,
okay.
I think when we do the comprehensive plan update, that'll probably be a topic that'll come up. For whole time I've been here, over 20 years, it's shown this right away heading through the area. I know we debated it at the time, the chart platted back in 2012 to get that right of way, because again, it doesn't extend all the way to the 12th. But the idea was that school district property north of where this terminates currently, on its north property line end, it's not platted, so we could obtain that at that point. I don't know, I mean, we've got Columbus Avenue, and then obviously Highway 21 are the only north-south routes through there. I think that'll be a big topic of discussion as far as our transportation plan, if we need this to go through there.
I guess maybe just asking the school if they ever envision desiring a road going through there.
When with North, Ambulance, we took them, we were gonna charge them per foot, why don't we do the same thing with these guys?
You're talking for the, allowing them to have the right-of-way encroachment?
Right, how much we were gonna charge per square foot for the ambulance service?
So that's probably a little bit different situation, only knowing that that's an improved building that we're allowing them. But we were starting out at like $4 a square foot for the ambulance building.
And this, what would you wanna charge on this?
I don't know that I would recommend charging anything. We've got basically what is unused city right-of-way at this point, that if it can help a local company out, I think that's really the idea behind it, that they can utilize it at least in a temporary fashion to store some materials there. It really doesn't cause any material hindrance to anything that we have, operation-wise, for any public road, because it's not improved.
And I think I would also caution against charging for, in this case, unimproved right-of-way. Generally, right-of-way is set aside to be used as a transportation type use. And if it'd be questioned if we would even be allowed to use it as something else. And so for us to rent it out, or lease it out in this case, could potentially see, in my mind, some legal blowback in that this is set aside for a transportation use that you're not currently using. Are you allowed to even lease it out? So, I guess I would have to agree with Ken in this instance that, caution against charging a lease for this.
But Chart actually owns the property.
Next to it.
Next to it.
Next to it.
This is actual city dedicated right-of-way that they're looking to encroach upon for this temporary storage.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the encroachment agreement with Chart at 1203 First Avenue Northwest.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, next item is updated ambulance service agreement.
Yes, at the August 15th meeting, we did discuss, the ambulance agreement. And at the time, the city council wished to see a couple changes, including removing the leasing section. Since at this time, North Memorial doesn't seem to have any intention of leasing, as well as, adding in a reporting breakdown of ALS service versus BLS service. The other thing the city council asked for was a full red line copy from the original version. So I did change the formatting a little bit, and so in that instance, you would have had, the whole thing would have been considered redlined. But removing the formatting out of it, the copy I did include in your packet shows a red line of the agreement from the last one to this one. Kind of as I talked about, really updated some dates, fixed a few words that were misspelled. Added there at the bottom of page 1, just the availability of a second crew basically during the daylight hours. On page 2, under section 3, adding in the breakdown level of crew service during their operational information. Remove number 5, which was the kind of the leasing facilities section, and then just kind of change some dates. So this is, North Memorial has seen this particular agreement, and they did agree to removing section 5 as we discussed. So, I guess if you got any questions, let me know.
I had brought up to Josh earlier today a question I had regarding where they would be located. Specifically, I guess my question is, the first page when we talk about the second crew will be at the station. What is that? I'm thinking now, what does that mean at the station? That's the way it's worded, it's a physical location. And if it should be described as in the city limits of New Prague, or is it, I'm getting the impression that what we might end up with is just someone that's servicing the area through Faribault or some other location. And I don't know that, and that is a concern or a problem for me if the contract allows for that. But, so it's not clear to me what we're saying here necessarily. What, for them to comply with that terminology, where is the station and what does that mean?
Correct. So I guess when that was written, the intent was that they were leasing from this facility here.
Okay.
And I'll admit, when I was going back through, my eyes glazed right over that portion as something that would possibly need to be changed. It is possible, I guess, if you want to be very specific, that one crew will be located within the city limits available, and basically change at the station to located within the city limits. Knowing that, as I think Dwayne has mentioned before too, I mean, it's common sometimes for people that are servicing another's license just to kind of park an ambulance in the area, and they just kind of hang out in the ambulance until they hear something.
To follow your, the way you're describing that, then to comply, they would have 2 physical ambulances parked in the
During the
area.
day. Yes. And that is kind of going off what we had discussed earlier when they had mentioned that they would have one crew at the station 24 hours, and they'd have another crew on call. And then when Mayo presented, they said they would have that one crew at the station 24 hours as well as a second crew for 12 hours of the day physically at the station. And so that's how that language got put in there from earlier.
So how do you interpret what that says right now?
I tend to be an optimist and would interpret that they would have basically 2 crews during the day here as well as a full crew at night. Not knowing their lease situation, they've gotten a little bit harder to get a hold of lately, other than talking about the agreement, and have been not quite as forthcoming about what they want to do. I know we were in talks with them at one point not too long ago about potentially leasing out EDA land, and then that kind of went away as well. So
do you am I reading you to say that you interpret this to mean it does not mean a physical location, it means that they just have a presence?
that is how I would interpret this, but I know I tend to be slightly more optimistic on people, and they may interpret this as, well, they've got 2 ambulances wherever they're housing them. I'm willing to admit that.
I guess since it's worded at the station, which is a place, I guess I wouldn't read it that way, but I think there's some ambiguity there if you and I don't even agree what this line says, but if it does read the way you say, and I understand that that's maybe what they wanna eventually do is just service the area instead of having a facility here. I'd be very disappointed in that, but it does mean there's a change of what we talked about early on and how we looked at this, and certainly how I looked at it when I supported and recommended that we negotiate or discuss the negotiation of the contract. It's, when I look back as the reason why I supported the idea of North Memorial, I looked at the track record, which has historically been a presence in New Prague. The continuity of service would be less disruptive. What here we're changing how the service might be. We don't even have an answer what that might be. And the community integration with the city, with fire and everything else. So if they don't have a physical location here, that does change the dynamics. Not to say they can't provide the same service, but it's certainly different. And certainly different of the way I supported it to negotiate with them. So, this issue, I guess, is an important one to me. And if I understand where they may be coming from, I'm kind of bewildered in the track that this has taken since we've done this. And to look at the financial information they provided to us when they did provide financial information, I don't understand why they can't support. We weren't even attempting to get a market rate as we discussed this. We tried to come up with a lower rate and still based on their income over the time of this 6 years, I think they made over $280,000 in net margin that they told us. And that's after they started paying the Mother North Memorial a fee for the last 2 years of that financial information that they provided to us. So I'm kind of bewildered on where they're coming from here by not
So I will say
negotiating.
Yeah, I will say they've never come out and said, we aren't going to have a physical presence here. At this point, I would guess they're trying to keep all their options on the table. And I would assume, I guess from conversations that I've had, that they would like to have a physical presence here. But knowing that their current lease is up at the end of April, maybe there's a transition period in there that because I think if they even put a shovel in the ground today, they would not be able to build a new facility, I don't think, by the end of April. So, yeah, I mean, I really can't speak. I don't think anything in this says they will not have a physical presence here. But it does, the contract doesn't require, the agreement doesn't require a physical presence.
I understand what you said. Nothing that says they will not, but they give you no inkling or indication that they would.
Correct.
And that's problematic.
I think, you could just define one crew will be at the station and within that sentence define it as a physical location within the city limits of New Prague, and then go on with the rest of the sentence. If you have that in parentheses, that part, just tagging that the station is a physical presence within New Prague city limits would hold them to that, because I would agree that the past history of the contract is they have a physical location in the city of New Prague that they house from and deploy from.
I would agree that you can work with the wording to do that if that's what we would like to do, and I would support that idea if we want to do it.
Yes.
I would have the attorney drop the wordage because they could certainly own a parking lot and park a rig, and that could be a physical.
They could,
location too,
but if they are here for 24 hours a day with a staffed crew within our city limits, then they're providing that service. Where they're
two
able.
crews. 12 hours for one and
Yep.
24 for the other.
The 24 for the one group and the other rig would be here for 12 hours.
Right, so there'd be two in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and yeah, I guess to Jim's point, does it matter whether that rig is parked in a building or parked in a parking lot as long as the service is being provided?
Yeah, but I think what he's getting to is they gotta have a presence here.
Yeah.
Or they'll never be able to keep up the response time.
And I think that's what Jim's language is trying to provide, that
But they have a
They have to be here.
physical location
And,
here.
and I guess by putting that language in there, it allows for whether they move physical locations or they have a parking lot for a year and then a building the next year without having to actually go back and change the language.
and they could maybe even negotiate with Mayo Clinic Health System to park at the hospital and at least be able to have the crew be inside if needed, especially in the
Or give the
winter.
contract to Mayo right away. I mean, when,
The,
Been there
but
already.
besides just the ambulances, don't they have dispatch services and other things that go on in the building here?
No, everything comes out of,
Scott County.
no, the dispatch comes out of, Robbinsdale or wherever.
So as far as our facilities
just
right
the
now,
crew.
all they do is park the ambulances, they don't use any other or rooms or anything
they
else?
do.
Well,
sleep
I
rooms.
mean, they park and they sleep and the crew has living quarters
There's a
there.
kitchen.
So would they have that in another facility if we required a physical location?
I mean, that would be up to them if they
That'd be up
want
to them, yeah.
have that in their new facility.
Cause lots of times what they do is they'll, in the bigger cities, they bounce from hospital to hospital. And that's where they, hang out, but, lots of ambulance services, they hang out in the parking lots and, wait for calls. So. I think that's a good idea
Put
to
that language in.
wordsmith that
Okay,
with the help of the city attorney.
I guess is that kind of general agreement of the whole council?
I agree with that, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Assessment policy update.
Yes, real quick on this one, it wasn't long ago, actually, back in June, we had passed this new assessment policy, kind of cementing things that we'd already been doing. Since that time, we did have an owner on Main Street come to us, and they wanted to pass their Main Street assessment on to a new owner of the building. This is something I'd never heard of before. Everywhere else that I've been, when a building or property changes ownership for whatever reason, the assessment is basically paid off during the closing process.
yep,
So, but talking to Ken, it sounds like it's potentially happened here before. So we did talk to Scott Riggs, and he was under kind of the same opinion that I was, that kind of your best time to collect on an assessment is during the sale of a property when they've got that money. And so he actually recommended that we put something in our policy that requires at the time of sale or transfer or whatnot, and an assessment is paid in full at that point. And so I have put that language in here and Scott reviewed it. It is found on page 8. You'll see the red from that. Like I said, Scott read through that and he feels that that would be sufficient, I guess, for us. And so if the city council would like to go that direction, this would be an update to the overall assessment policy.
So if there's an assessment on a piece of property, and how could the title be cleared if there's a
Correct,
lien
that's
against
exactly what I was
property?
thinking.
That I'm not entirely sure. I mean, that's part of the weirdness that we're all trying to figure out. a little bit.
I've had it happen, financing properties, and it get missed, it becomes a lien again in front of the mortgage. So as a banker or a financial institution, it's something that you wanna watch out for carefully, because it does happen. And it used to be much more common years ago with contract for deeds, because two individuals would sell their property and the assessments would go with it, and then all of a sudden the person wants to pay off their contract for deed and didn't even know about the assessment that was there. So it's cleaned up a lot back then, but there's nothing stopping it from happening unless you have something like this, or the mortgage company requires it. Most of them do.
Yeah,
And the title companies will catch it, hopefully.
hopefully. But that's the only mechanism I could see was a contract for deed where it would,
There's places that allow it, so it does happen.
Okay.
And so I guess just for your update, the one property that requested it, talking to Scott and talking internally between Ken and I, we did end up allowing it to go through because we didn't really have the meat policy in place otherwise. But figured that putting this in place, it would kind of stop that in the future if we wanted to go this route.
Okay, so we already have it in the policy though that a senior, the deferrals, but the minute it changes hands, it has to
Correct,
be paid
yes.
in full.
Correct, and so, yeah, I mean, yeah, so, I mean, yeah, in terms of delayed or deferrals, if for some reason they qualify for that, there's already something in place for that, but this would cover everybody else who maybe is 1 year into making their assessment payments, then wants to sell, and the new property owner says, sure, I'll take that on. Scott believed that there's potentially legal grounds, that they could then say, well, I didn't go through the assessment process, so I shouldn't have to pay that.
The financing is cheaper, and it means you have to put less down sometimes, so that's why people want it.
Oh, okay. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve this amended assessment policy.
So moved.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion by Sean, seconded by Maggie to approve it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Should have asked this, is this for all assessments on record as of today?
Yes. Yeah, it would be, I mean, that
no grant-
was kind of the intent of
There's
any.
no grandfathering back or anything.
Correct. Yeah, the only assessments that I guess would have gotten through are ones that made the request prior to today.
This isn't just for new assessments, it's for everything on the books.
Correct.
Okay, item G, recommended police officer for hire.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, I would ask the council to entertain appointment of Nicholas Folkerts to the position of police officer. Mr. Folkerts currently resides in the city of New Prague with his wife and children. He graduated from Eastview High School in Apple Valley. Spent 6 years in the U.S. Army specializing in intelligence before receiving his law enforcement certificate from Hennepin Technical College and attended the Minnesota State Patrol Lido Academy. He successfully passed the Minnesota Police Officers Standard and Training tests and is now eligible to be a licensed police officer. He took part in our last interviews and seemed like a very promising candidate. And with that, we made a conditional offer that he accepted. We would be looking at appointing him to the position as of September 19th, 2022, at step one of the 2022 LES labor agreement, and then also with the other stipulation with the vacation in there. And that would be based on all successful completion of all the elements of his conditional offer. He will be going through the physical, the psych, and the drug test here this week. They got scheduled. And he would have to successfully complete those to continue to be appointed, and start September 19th then.
Okay, any questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve a hiring of, or the appointment of Nicholas Folkerts as police officer.
So moved.
A motion by Rick, seconded by Bruce. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Scheduled budget number 2 meeting. Budget meeting number 2.
Yes, just looking to schedule the next budget meeting. Kind of for some context, generally by the end of September, we have to approve our preliminary not to exceed levy. We are looking to do that on September 19th. So in theory, if we could have one more meeting before the 19th, that would be ideal to make sure that we're all kind of comfortable with the number going forward. So that would be my recommendation, I guess.
And I'm sorry to say, but not really, I'm on vacation the week of the 12th.
Okay.
So not that sorry.
Any other suggestion for dates?
I will say September 14th, there's a neighborhood meeting for the 2023 project up
Mhm.
there at, 6
Okay.
o'clock, so that might be a tough date to do it up here.
Okay.
So I guess the other option, well, yeah, I mean, the other option, we could do a truth and taxation hearing that's a little bit later, or that preliminary meeting, if we wanna say we'll reconvene on the 26th just to approve the preliminary or something like that, so, we just have to have it done, the preliminary, levy set by the 30th.
Okay. But we have a truth and taxation before that?
No, I was throwing a bunch of words out there.
Okay.
Truth and taxation's in December.
Okay, that's what I thought. So.
I'm confused, so.
So the week of the 12th,
So it sounds like the week of the 12th is out.
Okay.
we have to have it done by the
We
30th.
have to have it done by the or we have to do our preliminary not to exceed levy by the 30th.
Well, just because one council member is not gonna be present doesn't mean that that whole week is a scrap, right?
Correct. It would, yeah, I mean, if everybody else wants to meet that week, we'd have to.
Okay.
Yeah, what about on the 8th?
So that'd be 2 days from now.
Yep.
I can't.
No,
I'm open the 12th or the 13th.
12th or 13th work for you?
So the 13th is a park board meeting,
That's up here.
12th.
but our one council member who's on the park board is on vacation, so.
12th works. Let's shoot for the 12th.
The 12th? We wanna do 5:30, we did what we did last time, or 6 o'clock, which is a normal city council meeting time?
5:30 would be nice, if we could.
Okay. We have at least 3 people who say 5:30 is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay, miscellaneous, Josh.
Yes, I just wanted to mention one thing. I got a notification from the community center that they would like to, give you all a tour now that a lot of their kind of internal improvements have been done. And we're wondering when that may work to tour the community center as a council. So, going back to our calendars, I guess. Do we wanna look kind of out into I mean, I don't think there's any timeline on this, so if we wanna look out into October a little bit, or.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
it would probably have to
Much
be
piling up.
a council night.
Are they doing an open house or something?
Not that I'm
They
aware.
just wanna show you what they did.
Mhm.
And it's gonna be cool. It's nice. I didn't mean it's gonna be cool as in there's ice in there and it's cold. I meant,
So I guess maybe something we could do is just say after whatever that first council meeting is, I could try to keep the agenda light so we can get out of here. And if they're available, we can all head over there after the council meeting.
Yeah, that would work.
Let's do that.
Okay. And that is all I have.
Okay, Ken.
Real quickly, I know Mayor received this letter from FEMA, but there have been preliminary flood insurance maps issued that are updated FEMA flood maps for the city of New Prague, and that includes all of New Prague, not just a portion of it, because we were left out of the Scott County update a couple years ago. So LeSueur County is hosting a couple of informational meetings. They will be held on Wednesday, September 21st at 5 to 7 p.m. for public open house, and that would be any resident that would like to attend. They can go to that meeting. It's done at the courthouse, not the courthouse, the government center, I should say. And then if you are interested as a elected official, between 3 and 4 p.m. that same day on the 21st, they have a 1 hour long informational meeting at that time. So just wanted to let the council know about those as well. And they're asking if we could publish this information on our website, which we will
Okay,
make that available, and probably on social media as well.
thank you.
not a huge change in any of the mapping, but if you wanna take a look at those, I'll try to get the link up and everything, if you wanna take a look at that, but just better detail with, digital elevations and, that type of thing. So, good product to have. That's all I got.
Chief,
I would, just wanna keep the council informed that we have, another officer that, had a background check by another department today. They came down to look at his, jacket in, HR. So we may have one leaving shortly. But we still maintain a list. We have another one on that list that, we were entertaining an offer. And based on how our budget talks go, if we do add an additional officer in 23, we would still be behind then. And with that announcement, I would also like to announce that I'm afraid that you guys might not reappoint me, so I will be ending my employment December 31st
Drama
of
queen.
2022.
congratulations.
Thanks.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
So that's the plan.
Okay.
So you got breakfast tomorrow then?
We have breakfast every day, don't you?
Not when you're buying.
Nick's appointment tonight would have been my backfilled replacement. But then if we have another officer that's leaving, then we would be down another one then.
Okay. Good for you.
I don't even wanna ask
Matt,
that.
nothing? Maggie? Sean?
Nope.
I don't.
Just quickly, since you brought the community center, was there any other, issue with the, mortgage or whatever that was?
Yes, so Scott did send over a letter, email, out to them. And we have a conference call tomorrow at 1 PM regarding the contents of that with,
Okay.
myself, Scott, and the bank, so,
The letter is consistent with what our previous discussions have been?
correct.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
Okay, Rick?
When did you say that is gonna take place?
Tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Cause I think we get a committee meeting pretty soon.
So I don't know if there's anyone involved, from the community center, or if this, right now, there's more conversation between us and the bank. Cause I mean, the bank's problem right now is the fact that we are not willing to approve the mortgage, and so.
Yeah, they already approved it and spent it. I don't know what they want from us.
I'm not sure. So that conversation tomorrow at 1 o'clock is, as far as I know, it's me, Scott, and Eric. And I'm assuming maybe there's gonna be legal counsel there since we have legal counsel coming.
Okay, anything else, Rick?
No,
Okay. Take a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
I was thinking we were gonna catch them when I caught it. Remember asking about that road?
Couldn't think of what to say.
Goes through right there, and there's that